Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, this video is back at another Card Fight Vanguard deck profile. So you guys joined up to like, subscribe, and start, shall we? This time we are working on Megacolony Giraffa. So Giraffa just got a new verse in Uda, the evil mutant sovereign thingy. I don't know how to feel about it. Like, it's definitely really good as the thing, but I've just been playing in my mind of like, why is it like it is? Because I feel like its other version is not as broken. But then again, I'm not the type of person that explores everything into depth. I stop at a certain level. So let's go ahead and get the starter, shall we? First up, we have our starter in Youthful Mutant Dorectus. Grade 0 boost 10k shows escape base. 100 road upon draw a card. Any of your opponent's vanguards are grade 1. We're ready to get a quick show ticket to your hand. Okay. My one note for this deck, my one note just for Megacolonies entirely. So I normally say the quick show and quick draw thing, whatever starter you pick is fine. You only have 2 starters in Megacolony that can do this, because the third grade 0 does not have that skill. And my exact question to Bushy is, why is Megacolony the only clan I could find that has 2 starters of this skill? Why? Why is this the only clan I can find with 2 starters of this skill? Every other clan has at least 3. Why is it this one I can only find 2? Why Megacolony specifically? I will never understand that. I don't know why they did it, but whatever. Youthful Mutant Dorectus is our starter. It's either this or you pick Machining Worker Ant, so it's up to you. Then we have our trigger lineup in 2 draw triggers in Larva Mutant Larva Draft, 2 crits in Cell Torpedo, 4 more crits in Sharpnail Scorpio, and 4 draw PGs in Paralyze Madonna. Grade 0 boost, 0 shield, 5k power. Continue settled on your force on the deck and auto guard when placed. This card won't from your hand, one of these cannot be attended battle. Send a PG, nothing special about it. Okay. The reasoning for all of this is, 1, you are like hand controlling your opponent most of the time with this deck, so you might as well just run crits, put pressure on them, because if you're on the OG Giraffa, you're already on a crit boost, so you know you want to make them, and you're calling stuff from hand, so you at least want to make them guard more to make sure each attack is dropping at least 4 cards, 2 from the Vanguard skill, hopefully, and then 2 from being able to actually block the Vanguard, so that's a plus from just 1 attack, and the draws, you know, to make sure that you have constant ways to either get grade 3s into Soul, get Giraffa so you can use the skill of the grade 3 Giraffa, or some other bullshit combination of the 2, or just have rear guards to abuse, really, because this deck only needs 3 rear guards and it can pull out like dangerous plays, so do as you wish with it, but I like the 6 draw 6 crit line. And then we have 4 heals in Snowflake Mutant Snowtrick, grade 0 boost, 20k shield, 5k power. I mean, yeah, it's just our normal heal. It is just the normal heal. I don't like heal guardians. They're detrimental to my playstyle. They don't really do much for me. If you want to run heal guardians because they're useful to you, run heal guardians. There's no problem with it. I just don't like running heal guardians because they have no purpose to me whatsoever. So 4 of Snowtrick heal, or whatever heal you want it to be. Then we have our grade 1s. First up, we have 3 copies of Stealth Millipede. This thing has become like, was one of the most annoying things I've ever dealt with, and it's slowly just turned into the least annoying thing I've ever dealt with. Grade 1 boost, 10k shield at 7k base, continues rear. If this unit is in the rest position, all your opponent's rear guards in the same column as it cannot stand. So let's just change that rear guard thing to units, and then put it behind your vanguard, boom, they can't stand. Yeah, no, that's still pretty good though, like even if it was just the rear guards, because you can just put it behind your 2 columns, and that means literally your opponent's rear guard columns are paralyzed for good. Yeah, it's just fun. And then auto rear, when it's attacked or the attack it boosted hits, you must shove it to soul to countercharge 1. It is a mandatory effect. So the only way to get rid of this, if you're not playing a deck that actively retires it, is to take the attack that it's boosting. But if you're at 5 damage, say bye-bye to your columns. You shove 3 of these down, the only thing that's standing next turn is your Vanguard. So overall stuff, Millipede is really good because it's a netter for resources for both soul and counterblast. It also can literally paralyze columns. It is the most dangerous grade 1 in this deck, and not something you want to mess with. 3 copies of Stealth Millipede. Then we have 4 copies of Megacolony Battler M. It is the thing I call my board getter. This deck doesn't need a board to make plays. It needs 3 rear guards, 2 in the front row, and then 1 in the back row for soul fodder. Typically, it's a grade 1 or a grade 0 at worst case scenarios that you just use to boost 1 of the columns. You swing with the Vanguard, then you take that card in the back row, you shove it to soul, you gain skills, and then you swing with the other rear guard and use that rear guard skill to send the other rear guard to soul. You open up your board, and you basically did all this for 3 hand cards. So you don't really need rear guards for this deck to work. But Megacolony Battler M definitely helps it because it's a grade 1 that can auto when it's put on guard circle, gets +5 for every 2 of your opponent's rested units. So they have 6 in total. That's +15 to the shield, so it's a 25k shield. All around that's pretty good because that's just a free shield buff, and it gets stronger with each attack. So Basically, they swing with a boost that's a minus a column, so at least a +5 to the shield. And then auto when it's retired from guard circle. If your opponent has no standing units, call to an open rearguard circle and soul charge 1. Plus to this, it's a, granted, well, it's mandatory soul charge, so we'll deck you out quicker. It's a soul charge of 1. In a deck that wants to get certain units into soul. So it's like a quicker way you can probably get Giraffas into soul. Hell, if you can get grade 3s off of that ability, that's really good for you, not to mention that well, yes, it has to be called to an open rearguard circle. It's still pretty good. Because most of the time you will have open rearguard circles, especially if you play this deck like me. This is a perfect card. It means you can still be defensive and then not have to commit an extra card next turn to rearguard unless you really wanted to for the 3 rearguard play. And he can possibly get you a grade 3 and soul to abuse with Ura. All around, Megacolony Battler M is one of the best grade 1s in this deck, and I think it's amazing, and I love it so much, and I put out a 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of Pupa Mutant Giraffa. This hands down is like the worst grade 1 by default, because this can paralyze a column. This can literally just do everything for you in terms of defensive and offensive capabilities by inherent capabilities. And this one is the best on Van because it's the only one with the Vanguard skill, but then after that it's like the worst one out of all of them. So grade 1 boost, 10k shield, 8k base. Auto when it's placed on Van, discard a normal unit from your hand, search after 1 card with Giraffa and its card name with the same grade as the discarded card revealed, put it to hand, show off your deck. Okay. That's amazing. That is, like, regardless of what other Vanguard skills they were, unless one of the Vanguard skills just said, on place, if you have Mystery Flare active in hand, you win the game. Okay, that's the only other ability I would say that could beat this. But this is still really good because, or not really good, it's fucking amazing because literally any card turns into your rattling. You want to get another copy of Pupa because you want to use its rearguard skill? Okay, drop one of these or drop itself and you can get a Pupa. Or discard a grade 3 to get one of your 2 main grade 3s such as Ura or the regular Giraffa. Or drop a grade 2 to get the grade 2. All around, that's a really good ability. Wish it wasn't restricted to Van. I wish it had a heftier cost if it was on rear because they have done it with spikes. But just how it is. And then auto, if this cost is reduced by Soul Blast 1 for each of your opponent's rear guards that rest in the same column as it. When placed on rear, Soul Blast 2, draw a card. Okay, so if they have a rested column, then it's just place, draw a card, which is a good thing. My thing with this is that is like the worst skill out of all of these, because while yeah, it doesn't cost a soul and it's just a free plus to replace itself, it's just replacing itself compared to column lockdown and resource getter and thing that allows this deck just to play with only committing 2 hand cards a turn to board. Commit the least amount of cards as possible and you still get to be as aggressive as you want to. That's a deck I want to play because that means you can be a fuck ton more defensive while still keeping a really good offense. So 4 copies of Giraffa, or like this one, it's good on Vanguard. It's amazing on Vanguard. It's like the best Vanguard skill I've ever seen from a grade 1. But its rearguard skill, as good as it is, just compared to everything else is bad. Again, not saying it's horrible. It's not. It's just compared to everything else it's bad. 4 of those, really good skill with that free draw, and really good search skill. Then on to grade 2s. So I don't run machinings in this deck because machinings are an archetype, and Giraffa is its own archetype by technical defaults as of evil mutants. So I don't run machinings. You can run machinings to get bullshit soul and other skills, but again, don't run them. Instead, I run Megalaralancer because Megalaralancer actually does a really good job. I have not experienced the good soul charging capabilities and megas outside of Megalaralancer. Every deck I've done good soul charging in is because of Megalaralancer. So grade 2 NSF 5k shield, 9k base. Auto, when he attacks a Vanguard, he gets +2 until end of battle for each of your opponent's rested rear guards. Okay, does that for free. Really good, because that means against a normal deck that isn't an Excel deck, if they have a full board, that's in 19k swing, so that's pretty good. Then you may put a rear guard to soul and your opponent cannot intercept for the turn. I'm sorry, what? He can lock down intercept for the turn. I thought it was for the battle. Intriguing. Okay, well, that's really good. He locks down intercepts for the entirety of the turn, cost no counterblast, gets you a soul, cost no hand cards, just a good ability. He's at least a 11k swing because most likely they have their Vanguard rested, and assuming they have another rear guard, but let's just say it's at least 11. You are also nullifying intercepts and you're sending something to soul. All around, that's really good in a deck that wants to send specific things to soul so you can get more numbers, and you can just start calling grade 3s to rush them down with this. There is literally no problem with this card. It's really good, and this is why I run it over machines, because machines like cost other things to do so. Megalaralancer costs 1 rear guard and does everything else for you. So 3 of Megalaralancer. It's terrifying. Don't screw with it. Then we have 4 copies of Megacolony Battler S, grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 9k base. Auto, when it's placed on rear, Soul Blast 1, your opponent chooses a card from their hand, calls it to rearguard circle as rest, then they draw a card, and the called unit cannot stand during their stand phase, and your opponent's card's auto abilities cannot activate from this call. Okay, it's just hand control. I never understood what the purpose of hand control was in Megacolony, because while yeah, you can like screw them over by preventing their abilities from activating on their turn and then nullify the dangerous aspects of it, you don't get to pick the card they call. And sometimes, yeah, well, you get to pick the rear guard they call it too. Wait, no, that's just chaos probably. While you sometimes do get to pick the rear guard they call it too, most of the time that doesn't matter, because in the end they still get to pick the card. So they can pick to call something that is absolutely useless in this scenario and doesn't matter to them in any way, shape, or form, is completely expendable. Like, I know I have a bunch of situations where I will have a lot of cards in hand, and I will willingly just discard a fucking trigger, because I don't need a trigger in that scenario. I don't need it for guard. I don't need it from anything. Like, that's my thing. I never understand the hand control simply because you know it's coming. You can just prepare for it. Like, if I see a deck that I know has Giraffa in it, I'm not gonna just like let it stand by and then keep all my important cards in hand. No, I'm gonna keep my damage at low, prepare for them to Giraffa me, and then call down 2 triggers so they don't get the satisfaction of screwing me over, and I will take that Vanguard because they can't stop me. I don't know what the purpose of the hand restricting is when you can easily play around it, but whatever. Either way, that's a really good skill. And then act drop once per turn. If your opponent has no standing units, discard 1 from your hand, call it to rear guard, open rear guard, and soul charge 1. Okay, pluses, it triggers its own skill because that could just get you a soul charge that you can immediately soul boss even if you had no soul to begin with. 2, well, it is basically once per turn, so you're not spamming it more than once. You can just call it out, so worst case scenario, you get a better rear guard. If you end up having 0 hand cards, you top deck a trigger. At least you can call a grade 2, and that grade 2 would go off. So all around is pretty good. Again, I play around hand control so much, I don't see the issue in hand control, and half the time, well, not even half the time, most of the time I'm on the receiving end of the hand control, and yet I'm still able to play around it, so take that as you will. And I play gold. I don't think golds have a way to get around hand control. Maybe they do, but who knows? Half the time I don't even use gold when I'm playing hand control. I'm playing something else. But either way, Megacolony Battler S is a really good card. Definitely really good for those people who don't know how to play around hand control or who have a hard time playing around it. So 4 of. I feel like I'm saying a statement about people who can't play around hand control. It's normal if you can't play around hand control. I think I'm just used to it at this point, to where I know how to get around it and I know how to predict with it from like 1 or 2 cards coming down in the start of the game. Next up, we have our main grade 2, an evil mutant Giraffa. Grade 2 intercept 5k shield, 9k base. Auto Vanner rear once per turn. When he attacks, counterbalance 1. This unit gets plus 5 until end of turn for each of your opponent's rested rear guards. And if your opponent has 1 or less rear guards that stand, draw a card. So you can plus for a counterblast, and he gets a hell load of numbers. This thing is actually one of the most dangerous grade 2s, believe it or not, because this thing hits the highest numbers out of everything, and every time I play against Giraffa, it is never the grade 3 that kills me. It's always this. Maybe it's because I don't have enough hand cards in the end to survive a Giraffa rush, because maybe they did trigger sack me with double crits, but I feel like I'm specifying a specific game there, but I'm not. Giraffa, this grade 2 though, always ends up killing me just because its number is so astronomically huge, and it shuts down so much, and it's all so simple, to the point where it's like the most annoying thing ever, and if I see this come down, I will always target it because I have PTSD from it. And then a continuous rear guard. All your opponent's rear guards on the same column as it cannot intercept or move to other rear guards. Okay, that's really good, because that just locks down position changing in general, because that means you can't move that unit up and down. Hell, if you have that one card from Stoicheia that can move diagonally, they can't move diagonally now. This screws over the entire Aquaforce. Does the new Demetrius do that, where like he changes rows? If he does, then this screws over entirely Demetrius and some Aquaforce cards specifically. And not to mention, he prevents them from intercepting permanently just by being there. You can do what people did with Nasty Smog before, and then just call into back row. Boom, they can't touch unless they have the ability to retire them, and that means all their stuff is stuck, which is just cool. I mean, obviously you want to put some of them in front row for their skill because it's actually really good. Either way, this Giraffa is amazing. Does really good free lockdown. Is literally a powerhouse beater, and one of the most terrifying powerhouse beaters I've ever seen come from just a protect deck in general, or like from a grade 2 in general, and I think it's a very solid grade 2, not to mention its Giraffa name, making it more of a benefit for the deck, and I like it a lot, so I give it a 4 of. Then move on to grade 3s. 3 copies of Pincer, Attack, Mutant, Intrude, Scissors. This has proven to be the most useless card in all of my decks, except there's a reason for that. It's not its fault, it's mine. Because I always set it up perfectly. It always ends up in my opening hand. I always end up getting to discard it, whether it's by like choice because I'm trying to G-assist and I don't want this in my hand, or because I like use it with Pupa Mutant, or it just ends up in my drop zone on its own. It always ends up in my drop zone before I hit grade 3, and I always forget it's in there after they take a damage, and I never use it. The games I use it, I win the turn I do, but I never use it because I constantly forget it's in there. Even if it's the only card in my graveyard, I have completely overlooked it just because it's like the least important thing to me. So grade 3 200 protect gift 12k base, auto drop at the end of the battle. Your grade 3 or greater Vanguard attack into anything. Doesn't matter what your opponent's Vanguard is, you just have to have a grade 3 or greater. If a new card is put into their damage zone this turn, counterboss 1, call to rearguard. Cool. Counterboss is very simple. With Millipede, it's a very easy cost to refund, so it's not a hard cost to pay. And then auto rear when play Soul Boss. When this Megacolony, you're going to have Soul for days. Choose one of your rear guards, stand it, and it gets plus 10 for the turn. This unit gets plus 10 for the turn. So pluses. He's a 22k swinger, so unless your opponent hits a trigger, this is at least hitting. Second, he gets you multi-attacks. You're getting 4 attacks. Third, if you don't want multi-attack, you can, because it doesn't involve him calling to an open rearguard circle, so you can call him on top of a rearguard circle that has already swung, stand the booster behind it, bring him to higher numbers, so even if they did sack a trigger, you're still getting multi-attack, and you're pushing. All around, Intrude Scissors is an amazing grade 3. It is such a simple cost to pay. It is a really good skill, if only I remember to use him. It's literally just that. He is so good, but I never remember to use him. He is literally always in my drop zone. This deck, any Megacolony deck I play with him, can consistently get him into drop zone. There's just a problem of me remembering he's in there, but when I remember he's in there, that's when I start winning games. Until then, he just stays in there and just questions why do I forget him. 3 of. Then we have 4 copies of our, I want to say main grade 3, but I'd argue it's the main grade 3. In my opinion, I like him more than Sovereign in terms of skill. In terms of art, I like Sovereign a lot more. Evil Armor General Giraffa. Grade 3 200 protect gift 12k base. Can auto van when this unit attacks a Vanguard. Counterboss 1, put a rear guard to soul. Yes, one of many rear guards. Specifically, you want to shove any of the 3 Giraffas or himself. Your opponent chooses 2 cards from their hand, calls them to rearguard circles as rest, and those units cannot stand during the stand phase. Their auto abilities cannot activate from this call. Okay, pluses. They are locked down. They are just 2 lost cards. They don't have any importance to them anymore at this point, unless you're playing a deck that can actively stand them. You have just lost 2 hand cards, and you might as well deal with it. There's only one way this can get worse, and it was Link Joker. And even then, Link Joker sometimes would be better, depending on what deck you're playing as. Ezzles, unlock, fuck you. But that's still pretty good. It's literally just a counterblast. You get a soul. They lose 2 hand cards. They don't get a plus off it. It's good. And it's during the battle phase. That means to block this, they're at least dropping 4 hand cards. Most likely a PG, which means they have to discard 1 for the PG, but also the 2 mandatory hand cards are forced to drop from this. Then continues Vanguard. During your turn, this unit gets plus 5 for each card with Giraffa and its different card names in your soul. So at most, you can hit 4. Himself, this, and Ura over here. So at most, he can get plus 20. And V at least. And premium, I believe he can probably hit 30 to 40. I know it's 30 or 40, or between 30 and 40. I'm not so sure if it's exactly one of those 2. And then if you have 2 or more cards with different card names in your soul, I'm not so sure if it's in your soul in general or if it's just different Giraffas. No, like it matters because half the time when I play this, well, not even half the time, literally every time I play this deck, I will get one of the 2 Giraffas in soul, and then by the time I hit this, I already have the other in hand, and so I can just send it to soul and I hit the skill, and your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater. The original critical of this unit becomes 2. So it basically gets a force 2 on it. Cool. So it forces out hand cards, makes your opponent wants to guard this, because if they don't guard it, they're taking this to the face. So it's already at least a 2-card drop. Unless they're a force number. Nope. Yeah, because if you have the other 3 Giraffas in soul, it's already a 2-card drop for his attack alone, and then followed by his skill, it's another 2-card drop. So all around, Giraffa is really good, forces out at least 4 hand cards on his swing alone, and that's just good. If you can make your opponent drop 2 to 3 cards per swing, you're already in a good situation. If you can make them drop 4 cards per swing, you're probably winning this game, end of story, unless your opponent finds a way to like deck you out resource you, or completely goes 360 no scope, murder everything in sight, full ball to the walls, everything's going ham. All around, Giraffa is a really good grade 3. This is one of the most terrifying grade 3s I've ever seen released. Too bad it belongs to Megacolony, the deck I play the least because it's just a control deck, but whatever, still an amazing grade 3, and I like it, so 4 of. Then we have Evil Armor Sovereign Uragiraffa Reverse. I do not know why I like saying Uragiraffa so much. What does the word Ura mean? I don't know what it means, but I just like saying it so much. Anyways, grade 3 turned to protective 12k base. Also, I just want to talk about this art real quickly. As much as I think the reverse ring around, it's just really plain and it's kind of boring, it's itself so makes up for it. These freaking wings that look like knives followed by its actual knife arms, or not even knife arms, but like, I would say they're more like scythes, but not really scythes, like scissor arms, I guess, with the wings, like I said, that kind of look like them, but not really. Followed by like a spidery legs, okay, as creepy as that is to me, that still looks fucking cool. And I love it when villainous things like go white because it makes them look so scary, but like so terrifying. Or, no, it's not something, sorry. So terrifying, it's so freaking cool, and I want to get closer. Then I remember, right, it's gonna kill me. So, this beautiful looking thing, auto van once per turn. When it attacks a vanguard, counterblast 1, your opponent chooses one or more cards from their hand and calls them to rearguard circle as rest. So they're at least losing one hand card, at the very least. Okay, but they can choose to add more. Why would they choose to add more when the card's abilities are nullified from this call, or the auto abilities are nullified from this call? Because if the number your opponent called is less than the number of grade 3s in your soul, draft in their card names, not different card names, thankfully, lock a rearguard, stand him. So while he is a once per turn, he can stand. So if you have, so how fast can I get grade 3s in this deck? Like, ride this first, ride this, summon a bunch of Megalarancers. Well, if you ride this first, because it doesn't involve them being at grade 3, and they just call 2 of these to back row followed by 2 Megalarancers, that's 2 Giraffas and Souls, so if they don't call 2 from this swing, they're essentially dead, because you're at least getting a restand out of it. The thing is, I wish it was equal to or less, because then that would make this really good. Because I played it when it was equal to or less, it wasn't that strong. It wasn't. It genuinely wasn't a problem. I mean, I still lost. I will admit that I did lose, but it wasn't that bad. It was close losses. And granted, yes, I don't explore like the competitive side of this. So, you know, if people chose to do try hard build, maybe that's what they're terrified of. But genuinely from this build, if it was equal to, it's not that dangerous. It was more balanced that it was equal to, weirdly enough. It was a lot harder. It was a lot easier to work with. But whatever. Being able to lock a rear guard and standing himself is very good. Very simple. I like it. And my only thing is he does not force out as much calls as this one does. Because, you know, forcing out 2, it's just the same thing this one does, except you get a less rear guard and you're getting less numbers out of it. But his other skill is auto van during your turn, not once per turn, by the way. When your opponent's rear guard is placed, lock a rear guard. All your front row units gets plus 15 for the turn. So if they call 2 from his skill, you can lock the 2 back row, and your front row is automatically getting plus 30, and then he's a restanding 32 swing. No, he's a restanding 42 swing. Pretty good. Pretty good. I like the Yaeverse. I think he's really good. That's genuinely really strong. He can definitely get more numbers all around than just this one incredibly fast. My thing is, he can get you less cards than Giraffa can get, and he doesn't have as much pressure. Because a restanding Vanguard doesn't matter if it doesn't have the correct pressure, such as extra crits, which is what this one does. And this one's easier to play around because you're not like, it doesn't have an extra crit pressure, so I can actually afford to be really aggressive in the early game or stockpile hand cards and not do anything with them and not have to die to Uragiraffa, while this one I actually have to have a hand to prepare for because it has double crit. This one I can just take it. As they see a crit, cool, they see a crit, but otherwise, yeah, all around is really good, but it lacks that initial pressure that this Giraffa puts on. Now, if this had an ability to get a crit, perfect, but that's just how it is. So 4 of our Giraffa. Then we have our gifts, Protect 1 and Protect 2, 6 of them, because I highly doubt you will, probably don't need 6, but I highly doubt you will get more than 6. And again, might as well get 6, just because you can and you will. So anyways, Protect 1, when acquired, goes to hand, and it acts as a PG because it has the standard Sentinel and auto when it placed from hand. On guard circle, discard 1 where units cannot be until battle. And Protect 2, when acquired, it goes in a rear guard circle. This unit gets plus 5 on that circle, and it gets plus 10 KShield when it intercepts. It does stack, so if you put 2 on the same circle, it's plus 10 and plus 20 when it intercepts. And if you have 3, plus 15 and plus 30, etc. So this is the deck that I say it changes around with a lot, because if you're on this one, you're sending something to soul, and if you play how like I told you to earlier, you're going to end up losing all your rear guards except for 1 rear guard, and if they're playing a nuke deck, there's no reason to keep the Protect 2, because you're just going to lose your rear guards constantly. So if you're playing against a deck that's going to retire your rear guards, and this is your unit that you ride first, don't pick Protect 2, pick Protect 1. But if this is the unit you ride first, or even if you ride this one first and you're not playing against a nuke deck, pick Protect 2 to add that little bit more aggressive to your rear guards, even if you don't need to, because you might as well. And then Quick Show, whenever you use the tactics, plus 5k for the battle. Standard 5k show you typically use for discarding, but since most cards in this deck don't actually discard, feel free to do what you like with this card. And that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, it's interesting. It's not one of my favorite decks just because it happens to be from a control deck perspective, but all around is pretty good. Like I said, Ura is definitely a really good evolution because all around it can get more power than the original. My only thing with it, it does not have the initial pressure that this Giraffa has on it. So by default, it's not that dangerous on its own. Now, yes, obviously we all have the ability to be like, oh, draft check, critical trigger, cool. It's game because there's 2 little hand cards to survive it. It already has double crit. You can't really outlast it then. Okay, yes, so then on that front, then obviously Uber's better. But when it comes down to a pure basis of skill where luck is not remotely involved in it whatsoever, it comes down to, yes, while Uragiraffa does have more power inherently than this one, a restanding Vanguard is not threatening if it cannot kill you in 2 hits. Because if you just have a restanding Vanguard and you're at 1 damage, unless they see a crit, it's not going to matter because you can just afford to take everything that turn. I mean, yeah, if intrusives and drop, then it's dangerous, but you get my point. This one has more pressure to force you to be defensive. This one, while it can get rid of more hand cards at once, does not have the initial pressure. It needs to make the first attack a deciding decision. So, without further ado, I'm gonna end here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you on this one. Don't forget to stand up your Vanguards.